Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com. Hey there, I'm Ray Flowers. Oh boy, it looks like we're frozen here on the screen. I hope that you can. This does the trick. Yes, it does. We are winning here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Hi again. I'm Ray Flowers, your host. You might be listening to us in your podcast form, wondering what the hell Ray's talking about. We do have a video of this. You can watch this live on YouTube, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork if you want to watch again the show live at 11 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. You can also see me because people like to see me. I don't really know why. How do I look with the beard, right? This is better than the big bushy beard. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for saying that. Don't forget to go to fantasyguru.com, click on the Elite Plus tab at the top. You can find all the shows that are stored there, and also type in Fantasy Sports Daily into your local podcast network and see if you can find us there if you want to take us with you on the go. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of fantasyguru.com. You can find my work over there. You can find my work on YouTube, as we just talked about. You can find me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm on the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Mans Monday through Friday. Jeff is on from 3 to 6. I'm on with him Wednesdays. Justin Fenton and myself host the Elite Sports Game Time Show Monday through Thursday at 8 to 10 Eastern Time, so later tonight. That's a show where we go live to the field and we talk about things in real action. We're kind of like Sports Center with a wagering and fantasy spin. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Enjoy the show. We track the bets we make during the day. We follow the games at night. Have a good time for a couple hours on SiriusXM. All right, what are we talking about today? We got a lot to talk about today. Protecting pitchers doesn't work. And I know that I talked about this last week. And since I talked about this last week with Yuri Perez on Friday, a couple of more big names, Bieber, Strider, we're going to delve into this a little bit more. I won't belabor the point. It's something I've talked about for years. And, you know, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I'm not a biomechanical expert, but we'll talk about this a little bit here. Just go through some of the players that continue to go down. We'll talk some news and notes. Some players that are kind of on the way up, some guys that were added off the waiver wire this week. We got a big, significant injury potentially with Luis Robert and that hip that he's dealing with the White Sox. So we'll talk about him. We'll review the FAAB bidding. I thought I'd try this out. And if you like it, let me know in comments here. Send me a question or your thoughts in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. Would you like Monday to be a review of FAAB? Does that interest you? I'll go through my FSGA league, my labor league, and my Tout Wars leagues to kind of give you a consensus of how players are being spent on this weekend. Let me know if you think that's of value moving forward. Again, we'll talk about the injuries. Steele, Cole, Bieber, Perez, Strider, Gausman. Is he hurt? He looked like ass this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that. Guys we haven't seen on the hill still to date: Walker Buehler, Jordan Montgomery, Justin Verlander, S.Gray, who'll be back this week on a pitch count, Blake Snell, on and on and on. And then a couple of names that keep coming up: Blaze Alexander, JJ Bleday, and Garrett Crochet. We'll talk a little bit more about them here. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20, FSD20 to sign up for the products at fantasyguru.com. Remember, we've got a seasonal baseball product that you can still sign up for. Still writing articles, answering questions in Discord all the time. The rankings get updated the first of every month. All 600 plus players get re-ranked. So that'll be on May 1st. We've got that option for you. We've got the wagering option for you. If you want to get involved there, make some cash on the side, wagering with our crew, you can sign up for that for the baseball product. Then, of course, the DFS product. Every day after I finish this show with all of you, I jump in and do the cash game breakdown over at fantasyguru.com. And speaking of DFS, we had Chris Rose on last week. You probably remember he had a great visit on Friday, talked us through what a GPP is, how to put a lineup together, and he even gave a couple of hints there at the end. Well, just wanted to show you how he did that day. So we had that discussion in the morning. He felt pretty confident about his lineup. In the end, I know it's small there, but he finished third and he made $1,100 in his tournament. So Chris put his money where his mouth was, and it worked on that day. So let's be honest. It's a great marketing tool when your guy comes on and says, hey, this is what I'm going to do tonight, and I think I'm going to have success. And then he goes out and makes $1,000 and finishes third in his tournament. Chris, Scott Bonder, Ted Schuster, all the crew really know what we're talking about here. And it's one of those things, if you have patience, if you have faith, if you create a system and you stick with it and stick with us at fantasyguru.com. We really think we can help you have success, enjoy yourself, make some money. But just wanted to shout out Chris, who is it a heater? It's not a heater yet until you do it multiple times. He'll do it multiple times. He does it every year. But a great start there with him talking about that lineup with us all, and then going out and finishing third in his tournament that night. So shout out to Chris. Head over to fantasyguru.com. Click that Join Now tab in the top right. Get the DFS baseball package right now. Chris and company, including yours truly, there to help you out in the DFS side of things. Okay. So we talked last Friday about the situation with Yuri Perez, and I said, look, they babied this guy, they rested this guy, all this stuff, none of it worked. You know, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then hours later, day later, Shane Bieber, we hear, oh, his elbow's messed up, he needs Tommy John surgery. We hear Spencer Strider, his UCL is messed up. We have not heard he's going to have surgery yet. It seems very likely, if not outright, going to happen that he will have surgery and miss the season. Not definitive yet, but that's where everything is going to this point. By the way, this would be the second Tommy John surgery for Spencer Strider. He had it back in 2019, which also leads you to wonder, doesn't this, I mean, if you're repairing this, if this area that's injured is repaired surgically, how is it 5 years later you need surgery to repair that spot again, right? Like our thought process is, hey man, your ligament's torn, you get your ligament fixed, cool. Now this part of your arm is healthy. Now we have to worry about your shoulder, or we have to worry about your hip or your oblique or something like that, right? We don't have to worry about the elbow again. And like I said at the start of this show, and like I've hinted previous to this, I think the problem to me is pretty obvious. I've heard a lot of people say it's the pitch clock, and I'm here to tell you it's not the pitch clock. Why do I say that? Because if you go do yourself a favor, go to YouTube and pull up an all-star game from 1976 or something like that. Go watch some highlights of some old baseball games. The pitchers pitched fast. That's how the game was played. That's how it worked. That was the speed of the game. What we have now is more of a return to what we used to have versus something completely new. We've gotten used to games lasting forever and 47 pitching changes and all this kind of stuff. But the game of baseball for 100 years was played the way we're playing it now with a pitch clock. I don't buy for a second that it's the pitch clock. And if it is somewhat the pitch clock, because these pitchers haven't trained for it, they're not expecting it, isn't that part of the problem? Go back and watch the old guys and the dominators, you know, Mike Scott, the Doc Gooden, Fernando Valenzuela. Like, go watch these guys. Were they all throwing 98 miles an hour? No. Did they all have arm problems week after week? No. There has to be a correlation there, right? Doesn't there have to be? Even if we're not being scientific about this, the game is returning to where it was 25 years ago when there were way less injuries 25 years ago than there are today. Guys are bigger, stronger, more well-trained now than ever before. How are they breaking more? Which leads me to a quote that I wanted to throw up on the screen here from Alex Cora. And I'll read just a little bit of it. It's on the screen there for those of you on YouTube. Here's Alex Cora, the manager. From my perspective, and obviously these guys want to prepare for the season, but I was telling the guys that we used to, I hate talking about the past and the present, but live BP back in the day was 88, 89 hitting your spots, not 97, 98 getting people out. These guys are beasts. They're ready to go since day one of spring training. They go to facilities to get better. That's where the game is going. If they don't go to the facilities, then we're going to be on them like you're not putting in the work. But we have to create a balance. I think throwing 97 in December, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a big league manager, but it can't be good for you just to throw 97 8 months of the year. You need some rest. And these guys, the season is over and they're throwing bullpens right away. They get back at it a month later. And I'm not saying that the reason, but that's what I see sometimes. Like, how are we doing too much? Is this something that we have to put into consideration? It happening too often. And the fact that they're so talented, they're so good, they're freak athletic-wise, this is the normal motion, right? Throwing underhand. And then he talked about, unquote, then he talked about softball pitchers and why softball pitchers can throw forever. And it's true. Our shoulder is not made to throw over the top. It's made to throw underneath. So guys can pitch, fast pitch softball, can pitch to the 50s and never have arm problems. Naturally throwing a baseball is not a motion that, let me say that again. Throwing a baseball is not a natural motion. Okay. So you have a big league manager saying, look, these guys train year round. That's not good. He says they come into camp, unlike in the old days where you kind of worked into it, they're throwing gas, 100, they're throwing it, from the day one. And this is what I have said all along. Alex Cora, thank you for saying what I've said. No. This is a problem. The pitchers are trained to be 100% of what they can physically be. They get the maximum out of their body. They go to train, they go to drive line and all these places to add an extra mile an hour or two in velocity, to have all these high-speed cameras capture their motions and to make subtle tweaks so they can tunnel the baseball better. They then talk about pitch shapes and what do I need to do to get a batter out? Do I need to change my release point? Do I need to change, where I'm at here? Do I need to twist? So they find out the perfect way to get a batter out. Now, the problem is when you've been throwing the baseball one way for 25 years and then you change something, what do you think is going to happen? If you're a race car driver and you're always turning left, always turning left, always turning left, and then you have a track where you have to turn right, how's that going to go? You're always turning left. How's it going to go to the right? So it's only logical to say that A, the pitchers are too wound up. Cora's talking about this here too. The training, not just physically too wound up, but the training here that he's talking about. And B, the striving to make their arsenal the best it can to get outs doesn't necessarily play directly into longevity. And I said this the other day with some of the guys over on a chat we're in from Guru. All this is for pitchers nowadays. This is a race against the clock. You go out there and you do the best you can. You throw the hardest you can. You get the most out you can. You dominate the most you can. And you hope you get that big contract before your arm blows up because your arm is going to blow up. Period. It's going to blow up. And we're getting to that point now. It doesn't matter if you're a lefty or righty. It doesn't matter if you're tall or short. It doesn't matter if you're big or thin. It doesn't matter if you're 35 or 25. Your arm is going to blow up. Here's part of the problem with that too. Let's switch to this next situation. This is from Bob Nightingale's article over at the USA Today. While shoulder injuries have diminished, 36% of all pitchers on major league rosters at the end of last season had undergone Tommy John surgery. 11 more have had the surgery since. That number is now 37%. 1/3 of pitchers on all big league rosters have had Tommy John surgery. Here's the follow-up to that. Stan Conti, who was a trainer for 20 plus years in the big leagues, including for the Giants for a long time. He's got a clinic that he and his son run. And he mentions here that, 85 to 90% success rate on Tommy John surgery, which is true. But we're down into 50 to 55% range when you have multiple surgeries, which is where Spencer Strider could end up if he's having this second Tommy John surgery. So at the end, what do we do? Well, it's obvious what needs to be done, but no one wants to do it. We've talked about it frequently. We've had discussions about it here on the show. And I'll bring it back to the fantasy space. It's obvious. You can't be throwing every pitch 98 miles an hour. Can't do it. Okay. Your body breaks. Can't do it. You can't go my stupid metaphor of flooring the car engine for 5 minutes. You can't do it. It just doesn't work. They're going to have to pull back. There's no incentive to pull back because the guys blow their arms out. They still get their contracts. They're guaranteed contracts. Guys get hurt, but because they've been in the big leagues for years, they go through arbitration, make more money even if they're not pitching. This is, again, it's a race against the clock. The pitchers know their arm is going to explode at some point, but they're going to try to get the $10 million, $20 million, $50 million before it happens. So you got all these athletes pushing their bodies to 100% of what they're capable of doing in a race against the clock. Bringing it back to the fantasy space, as I said, if you drafted Spencer Strider this year, I got no sympathy for you. None. If you drafted Garrett Cole this year, I got no sympathy for you. None. If you're in a keeper league, I have sympathy for you. But if you drafted one of these two guys, which are the two pitchers that were going in the first 15, 20 picks, you blew it. You ignored everything I've been saying for 10 years. You ignored all the data that we've seen, especially the last handful of years. You blew it. And the worst part now is I start thinking about this, and you look at ADP, you could have taken Spencer Strider in the first round. You could have taken Yuri Perez in the 5th round. You could have taken Shane Bieber in the 6th round, right? You could have taken Paul Sewald in the 8th round. I mean, you could have, 4 of your first 5 pitchers or all 4 of your first pitchers all be out with only one of them, Sewald, having an opportunity, it sounds like, to come back and pitch this year. So I raised the specter of what I said previously, and I'll do it again. We have to give serious consideration into 2 things. 1, going to team pitching, or 2, going to offense-only leagues. Because how many of you out there right now have multiple pitchers dealing with arm injuries already? We're 2 weeks into the season, right? Multiple pitchers dealing with arm injuries. How many of you out there? I have a league like this, and I've got a keeper league, right? And I've talked about this previously. Here's my keeper league bench right now. Brian Wu, injured list. Walker Buehler, injured list. Taj Bradley, injured list. Shane Baz, injured list. Is that fun? Is that something that you want to participate in? Having all these superstar potential pitchers not even pitching? In my Dynasty League, Julian Merriweather, IL. Matt Brash, IL. Yohan Duran, IL. Dustin May, IL. John Means, IL. Devin Williams, IL. That sound like fun to you? Doesn't sound like fun to me. Fantasy baseball is becoming about not who drafts the best. It's who does the waiver wire the best and who's fortunate enough to stay healthy. The game shouldn't become about the winner being the team that stays healthy. If you could just draft a team of pitchers where all your pitchers throw 150 innings, you're top 3. Provided you didn't, draft a bunch of flunkies. You're top 3. There's just too many injuries. And this game has become, again, about staying healthy versus having skills. Do you enjoy that? Leave me a comment here on the show, over in the Discord at fantasyguru.com. I don't enjoy this, as you can probably tell. And I really struggle to feel confident that, this is the direction that we need to go or should go or want to go in the fantasy space. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't think it works. So that's my little rant on that. Let me know again what your thoughts are on all of that. Let's talk some news and notes from some of the things. And by the way, just to reiterate, Strider, Perez, Bieber, Cole, Steele. I mentioned Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman's velocity when he got blasted over the weekend was down like 3 miles an hour. That's significant. Okay. Maybe the shoulder isn't okay. Guys go out and have bad efforts. Okay. It happens. We talk about it all the time. But losing 3 miles an hour in velocity, oof. So he bears close watching. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up on the injured list here. But even if he doesn't, got to keep a close eye on Kevin Gausman because that was not a good effort on the weekend. As I noted earlier, Blake Snell, who will return this week. S.Gray will return this week. Verlander, Montgomery, Buehler, Senga, Lodolo, Wu, Romano, Duran, Sewald, Stephenson. All these guys haven't even been seen yet. I mean, are you having fun yet? And one last name, Max Fried. I know a lot of people are angry and upset, and they should be. He's pitched like Bud. Don't drop Max Fried. Keep Max Fried. If someone else drops Max Fried, add Max Fried. Don't give up on Max Fried. 2 rough starts, yes, especially in the first inning. But don't give up on Max Fried. All right, Luis Robert, in that article that I linked to earlier that we were talking about from Bob Nightingale, he said that his sources, and this is not confirmed, but his sources are telling him that Luis Robert's hip issue is likely to cost him 3 or 4 months, which is, of course, half the season plus. Oof. Now, Robert came out and said that it's not as bad as it was last time when he missed a huge chunk of the season. But privately, I guess the White Sox are very concerned. There are rumors that they would sign Tommy Pham, which, all things considered, would probably be a pretty good move. If Pham gets signed, I mean, he's all of a sudden, he's going to play every day if he gets signed. That team is not good. They could certainly use some power and speed. He could bring that. So that's, if you want to get ahead of things and grab Tommy Pham and hope and play that game, you can do it. Depends on your league rules and all that kind of stuff. But again, we'll have to watch for clarification on this. But that hip issue apparently is a much more significant injury than we initially thought. He's already been placed on the injured list. JJ Bleday has had a really good start to the season, and he's come up in waiver talk. And you search your league, and again, we'll talk some FAAB here in a minute. You search your waiver wire, and you probably see a guy at the top of the list. In terms of production to date, as being JJ Bleday in the outfield. So let's talk about him for a second. I've got a source. Sorry, I was looking at something else. I've got a source that, let's just say, analyze players professionally, right? I do have a source for this one. And this person told me that he didn't think JJ Bleday would ever hit. Just the hit tool, no. And that's kind of the thing that's held back Bleday too, is that there's been a divisiveness in the scouting community over whether or not Bleday would ever really hit. Like some people say there's talent here, but the hit tool is just bad. And the first 2 years in the big leagues, the hit tool, well, it was horrible. I mean, what do you have? A 600 OPS the first two seasons, whatever the hell it was. This year, it looks much better. Now, it looks much better. We still have a 795 OPS, so we're not lighting the world on fire here. But let's dig into this a little bit. Again, it's too early to look at 30 batted ball events and think that that's telling the entire story. But for a guy that was at 87 miles an hour the last 2 years, he's at 84 miles an hour this year. 84 miles an hour is, Esteury Ruiz stuff. Like, that's horrid. It's absolutely horrible. Okay. A 3% barrel rate, absolutely horrible. A 22% hard hit rate, absolutely horrible. So Bleday has done nothing StatCast-wise to suggest that his production on the surface is sustainable. Nothing. Now, he is making much better contact, which that would be intriguing if that were to stick long term. He's been at 25% strikeout rate, a little worse than league average. He's at about 17% right now. If that holds, that's intriguing. Okay. But at the same time, there's just, I'm just telling you, there's nothing here. He hasn't pulled the baseball. His pull rate's 22%. Again, maybe he's got a hold. Maybe he's trying to become Luis Ariz, but like there's just nothing here. So he's hitting everything into the ground. He's not pulling anything. The data is very suggestive of really blahness across the board. So be very cautious with JJ Bleday. I think in total, that's just a player that, MJ Melendez is a player that's much more intriguing. For those of you that were with us at fantasyguru.com last year, I told a lot of people, look, maintain the faith. I know he started slow. This looks bad, but there's going to be some big things coming. He's just too talented. He hits the ball too hard. And then the second half, he was really effective. And in the end, his numbers were solid. Now, he heads into this season, not in the majority of leagues at least, qualifying at catcher. That really dings him because he's not a 20 steal guy. I could see a scenario where he hits 20 home runs, but he's not a 20 steal guy. So if he's hitting 250 with 20 home runs and he's going 75, he's like, should he be drafted? Okay. In the early going, he's been great. He's made very good contact. His strikeout rate's barely 21%. He's got an OPS of 1100. He's flashes athleticism. He, in opposition to Bleday, is legitimately hitting the ball on average 11 miles an hour harder. 11 miles an hour harder on average. Yeah. His hard hit rate is 250% higher. It's 54%. So whereas with Bleday, it's like, what the hell's going on? In the case of Melendez, this is a continuation of the excellent batted ball data from last season. Still too early to say that he's taken his game to Judgian levels, and let's admit that he's not that guy. But he hits the ball really well. And if he can hold on to, again, his addition of contact, if he can cut down the strikeouts and maintain this level of 21% where he's clearly at in the strikeout rate, that's very intriguing. So I think in the case of Melendez, okay, right? Again, I don't think he's a 30 home run guy. I don't think he's going to steal. I mean, if he stole 10 bases, that'd be good. So he's not going to help you there. He's probably a 250, 260 hitter. So there are limitations here. But, if he plays every day and he went 22.95, I wouldn't be shocked. Limitations, though, with MJ Melendez. Blaze Alexander, great name. And this is how my season has gone. Is this how your season has gone too? I have Jordan Lawler in multiple leagues. And Jordan Lawler, came up last year, didn't look great at the end of the season, but one of the top 10 prospects in all of baseball. Everyone looks at him and says 2020 is happening at some point. Obviously wasn't going to start the year with the big league club because they sent him down to the minors. Perdomo hurt his knee. If Lawler was healthy, and he's not, he hurt his thumb and he's out for 2 months. If he had been healthy, Jordan Lawler would have been called up and he'd be the starting shortstop right now for the Diamondbacks. And he'd have a chance to win Rookie of the Year. But we can't have nice things, right? So, no, that doesn't happen. He's on the injured list down on the farm. He's going to, again, miss a couple months with his thumb issue. So Blaze Alexander hops into the prominence here. We'll talk about Alexander in a bit because he was added in a couple leagues I'm in FAAB. Blaze Alexander's off to a strong start, hitting 286, 348 on base percentage. Okay. Here's the problem with Blaze Alexander. There are not many scouts that believe he's anything other than like a 25th man on a roster. Okay. He is just not someone that profiles to the point where anyone is excited about him at all. He doesn't make good enough contact for a guy with his power level. His best tool is probably his power, and we're talking about a guy hitting 15 to 20 home runs. Like that's not, and that's his best tool. He's not a 286 hitter. No way he's going to hit 286. He's not a base stealer. He could maybe get to. I'll say it this way: everything comes together for Blaze Alexander. He plays 150 games. He hits 14 home runs with 11 steals. Okay, right? But really, if you're a good team, Blaze Alexander doesn't play for you every day. He's a bench guy. His hit tool is really bad. It's 30-35 on the 20-80 scale, which is worse than JJ Bleday. It's not good. So ride him while you're hot. He's going to be in the lineup now. Crazier things have happened. Guys get a job and they run with it and they have a successful season. But Blaze Alexander, be very cautious. Even with this hot start that he has had, notice he's got a 385 batting average in balls in play, which is impossible. Notice he's got a 30% strikeout rate, which is not good. And again, the scouting report is suggestive of a guy that's completely over his head and a guy that really shouldn't even be playing full-time in the big leagues. Getting the opportunity now because of the injury with Perdomo. Garrett Crochet, let's talk a little bit about Garrett Crochet. Getting a little more intriguing. And I'll say it this way. Garrett Crochet has been fantastic. His fastball slider combo is dynamic. Through 3 outings, he's got 21 strikeouts in 18 innings, and he's given up 11 hits. And I think most intriguing, even though those numbers are great, is the fact that he's walked one guy. He's been just on it. Now, the problem for him is something that, again, I've talked about. Last year he threw 20 innings. The year before that, he threw 50 innings. The year before that, he threw 6 innings. He hasn't even thrown 100 innings the last 3 years. Where are the innings going to come this season? Especially for a White Sox team that's not good, a White Sox team that's already dealing with significant injuries to a guy like Luis Robert. When this team is 20 games out of first place on August 1st, do you keep pitching this guy? I mean, that'd be more games out of first than by that point. They're not a good team. So, if you got Crochet, smoke him while you got him, as they say. But caution is warranted. He's not going to keep up this level of production anyway. He's going to recede. And even if he's really good this year, he's got obviously a big pullback coming. But he's looked tremendously good. I would, again, if I had Crochet, and I don't have him in any league, if I had Crochet, I would probably let him start for April and May if he kept pitching well, and then trade him. Now, I might even trade him before then. Depends what the offer is. But again, 100 innings in 3 years for a guy that they need to be part of this franchise moving forward, for a team that ain't going nowhere. They want to get him work. They want to build things up, but there's no reason to push it with the guy who threw 25 innings last year. So keep that in mind with Garrett Crochet. Great start, though. Very impressive start. Ryan Pepiot rebounded. Do you guys like the powder blue jerseys? Did you see the Pepiot wearing the powder blues for the Rays over the weekend? Great rebound effort against Colorado in Colorado. 11 strikeouts, no walks. That's fantastic. Now, his first outing against Texas, he got blasted. Gave up 6 runs, walked 4 guys. So his 2 starts couldn't be more opposite. One was great, one was terrible. And I think that's it's going to be part of the experience with Pepiot, who's got 90 innings in the big leagues. Like, there's work that needs to be done here, refinement that needs to be done here. The stuff is really good, and that's not in question. The question is the workload, and the question is the consistency piece. Even though he got blasted in his first outing, he was so good in the second outing, his whip is under 1 here. And if you look at his career whip, it's 107. It's really good. Got a strikeout an inning, really good. Walk rate, about league average. We can live with that. The problem is that he can be home run prone. He's not a big ground ball guy, so that's something to keep in mind. But I think overall the returns through 2 starts, pretty good, pretty solid. And we'll see if he can build on it from there. But just like with Crochet, understand that last year he threw 65 innings. 2022, he threw 120 innings. 2021, he threw 100 innings. If we're looking at 130 innings for him, we're probably doing very well. If he was a league average pitcher over 130 innings, I think that'd be a successful season for him. And I think that's doable. So I'm not anti-Pepiot at all. I'm just keeping it real. Max Meyer had another good outing for the Marlins. Now, understand the Marlins got to make some decisions soon. Braxton Garrett pitched over the weekend, looked pretty good. He and Cabrera are getting close to a return. They'll have to decide, does Rogers lose a spot? Weathers, Meyer, who's the one that's out? Who are the 2 that are out of the starting rotation for the Marlins? Note, too, that Meyer he's got 3 pitches. He's got 2 pitches. And really, He's only got one pitch. The slider is fantastic. It's fantastic. He's throwing the slider like 45-50% of the time. As a starting pitcher, that doesn't work. Long-term, it just doesn't work. And this week, he's lined up to face Atlanta. So be very cautious with Max Meyer. The stuff, again, it's there, but he's really a two-pitch pitcher, and the matchup this week is a difficult one. All right, let's talk some waiver wire stuff. And again, let me know if you think this is a good idea, if you'd like me to do this on Mondays, if you think this is a waste of time, send me a note here. Leave me a note over at fantasyguru.com in the chat room. Again, use that promo code FSD20 to sign up for any of the products over at fantasyguru.com. Remember, we've got baseball, DFS, seasonal wagering. We've got the football product up and running, the off-season product. We've got basketball, hockey, NASCAR, golf in the all-in package. Check that out. Top right of this page, click on the Join Now tab, rocking and rolling. Okay, here's some waiver wire information, and it's a little small, but we'll go through some of this. This is my Tout Wars League, 12-team league. Innings replace wins, solds replace saves, and on-base percentage replaces batting average. So this is very different. If you're in a points league, it's probably more similar than if you're in a roto league. But again, innings replace wins, solds replace saves, on-base percentage replaces batting average. Okay. As you can see there, I dropped Alec Lang. Ray, you're telling all of us to keep Alec Lang. I am. But remember, this is a solds league. It's different. If I was in a saves league, I would keep Lang. I'm in a solds league. I went to Giovanni Gallegos. Spent $12 out of my $1,000. I was on the fence of whether I really wanted to do it. I decided to do it. Okay. But again, solds league, not a saves league. If you go through this list here, Ronald Blanco, and he's a guy that everyone was into, right? I got all these questions, as I should. He had another strong outing yet again. He went for only $52 out of $1,000. And again, this is a team that's got multiple pitchers that are coming back from injury, highlighted by McCullers and Verlander and Queedy. Like, is Blanco even going to stay in the rotation? We don't even know the answer. He's over his skis anyway. He's been phenomenal as well in the early going here. Only 52 out of 1,000 was spent on him. JD Davis, $58 as well, full-time player. Luis Robert was disabled. JJ Bleday went for 25 out of 1,000. Remember, we were talking about Bleday earlier. No one in this 12-team league thought anything of him. That's less than 3% of the bid. Colin Ray was added for 57. Keaton Wynn was added for 57. These are guys that are streaming options, trying to get some depth in leagues. Neither one very exciting. 107 for Bradford, I think, is a mistake. We've been talking about this in Discord. We have a scenario where Michael Lorenzen was likely to start this week, and then they decided he needed one more start in the minors. The expectation right now is that Cody Bradford becomes a bullpen guy once Michael Lorenzen is ready to go. Michael Lorenzen likely to need one more outing in the minors, and then he's back next week. 107 is just too much for Bradford, for a guy that could lose his spot in 10 days in the rotation, in my opinion. Michael Lorenzen was only 14. See, there you go. Like, I'd rather have gone the 14 for Lorenzen than the 107 for Bradford. I think that was a better addition. Michael Taylor went for 126. I was asked about Taylor in Discord. Let's talk about him for a second. Taylor's going to play most days. He's still a strong defensive player. There's the ability to hit 15 to 20 home runs. There's the ability to steal 15 to 20 bases. These things are not in doubt with Michael Taylor. He's also going to hit 215, and he's going to have a 306 on base percentage. Like, he's not a good all-around offensive player. We can dream and hope and all those kind of things, but at some point you have to realize the guy's been around for a decade and this is what he is. If you need power and speed, he's not the worst ad. In an on-base percentage league, $126. We start 5 outfielders, and okay, I'm not that interested. I added Brenton Doyle during the first FAAB run, and I paid 38. Same guy, 38. He went for 126 here. Interestingly, Kelenic was released. He's not playing every day, but that's an interesting move to see him release. See Jerks and Profar, who had a grand slam over the weekend, added. Profar's as boring as you can get. He went for $51. Blaze Alexander went for 102. Released Javi Baez. I would have kept Baez over Blaze. We talked about Blaze earlier. That's too much in my opinion. Let's see if anyone else stands out here in an appreciable way. I'm looking. We got like a bunch of $9, $1, $3. Blackburn's interesting. Blackburn went for $36. Blackburn is someone that you can consider adding when the matchup is right. He started off the season very well. He's not a big strikeout arm. He's not going to get a lot of run support from the Athletics, but he's very effective. He's just one of those guys that, you add him, you drop me on him. At the end of the year, he's going to be added and dropped 13 times. Like, he's just that guy, right? It's really matchup based with him. And then Jared Walsh is interesting. Jared Walsh, as my cat tries to walk on my computer screen. Sorry about that. It's extra kitty. Jared Walsh for 7 for a short-term play until Nathaniel Lowe, returns. Let's go to the FSGA 14-team mixed league here. Ronel Blanco in this league went for 121, so double what he went for in the last league. This is a 14-team league, so it is a larger league. The last one was 12. This is a standard FSGA 5x5 that you all play. Blaze went for 97. Again, that's too much for me. Ronel Blanco went for 121. Pretty expensive. Take a shot. Okay, pretty expensive. Cody Bradford for 75. Again, I'm not seeing that. I don't think he's in the rotation long term. Chad Green for 68. That's a saves play. It sounds like Romano is going to be back soon. Sounds like Swanson's going to be back soon. But you know how these things go with arm injuries. I think that's aggressive for Chad Green. I would have liked to see that number be 28 or 18, but he went for $68. AJ Smith-Shawver went for 56. The hope that he sticks in the Braves rotation with the injury to Strider. We'll see if that plays out. I don't know if that will happen. Shelby Miller for 38. Again, I'm not for a setup guy. I don't think he's going to take over the 9th inning for the Tigers. Maybe I'm wrong. Oliver Dunn for 43. Spencer Turnbull for 33. Connor Joe for 33. JJ Bleday for 24. So all these guys about 3%. This league, I should have noted the FSGA is $1,000 as well. So we're talking 3% bids on all these guys. Nothing to get excited about. In this league, Michael Taylor went for 22. And remember, this league is deeper. It's got 2 extra teams. Okay, both leagues use 5 outfielders, but this league has 2 extra teams, and he only went for 22 here. So this is more in line with I think the bidding should have been for Michael Taylor than the 100 plus last time out. Alec Marsh and Jordan Wicks went for 21. Terry Lipscomb for 19. Keaton Wynn for 18. All these guys, again, that same price. We're looking at just playing a matchup this week using 2% of the budget to do that. Luis Garcia for 16. Not a bad pick for a guy who's playing every day. Javier Assad for 15. Aaron Ashby, who's joining the rotation now for the Brewers because of injury, $8. Stanek, 6. Grichuk, 4. So there we go. Nothing too exciting there, but again, I do like the price point here on Taylor more than I did in the last league. Let's go to Labor. It's a 15-team mixed league. It's the deepest one. Again, traditional 5x5 here. David Hamilton was for $13. Now, this league needs to be pointed out is a $100 FAAB. So this is different than the other two. So we're going to see smaller bid numbers here. David Hamilton's got a chance to stick it in the infield with the Red Sox because of the shoulder injury to Trevor Story. Obviously, they will welcome back Vaughn Grissom with open arms when he's ready to return. David Hamilton's got some power and some speed. If he can stick, hasn't had a great start, but if he can stick, he could be an under-the-radar type of guy. I don't know if I would have gone 13% of my budget on him, but there's a chance. If the injury to Story keeps him out 3 months, there's a chance we get a payoff here with David Hamilton. Ronel Blanco went for $8 here. Assad for 5. Oliver Dunn went for 4. Alec Marsh for 3. As you can tell, these are a lot of people just bidding, trying to get a guy for a good start or two. Here's Chad Green for 2. Again, that's more, I think, where he should have been. Will Brennan went for 2. Martin Perez for 2. Michael Taylor for 2. Again, 2% of the budget here. Blaze Alexander went for 1 in this league. And again, this is a 15-teamer. Blaze Alexander only went for 1. Terry Lipscomb for $1. I got Fernando Cruz for $1. And before all of you say, why the hell are you doing that? Is this a Souls league? No, it's not a Souls league, but I've got injuries on the hill. And, if you look at Cruz, he is very intriguing because he is thrown 4 1/3 innings this year. He's got 8 strikeouts. And you might say to yourself, well, that's terrific. Is that real? He has 106 strikeouts his last 70 innings. He had 98 strikeouts as a reliever last year. He is a dominant strikeout arm. He is one who loses control of the strike zone at times. I would love to see 75 innings and 125 strikeouts here. And even if that gets me 4 saves this year, we're in that zone, right? If you can find consistent, strong innings, even if they're from Fernando Cruz or they're from Matt Stram, like they're from these middle relievers that come in and throw an inning in 2/3. I mean, what are you getting from starting pitchers? Once these guys start going down with injury and you got to run to the waiver wire and you're hoping Shelby Miller's your answer or Colin Ray. So I took $1 bid on Mr. Cruz there. Harold Ramirez went for $1. Connor Joe for $1. Kyle Isbell for $1. Chris Taylor for his flexibility for $1. And then Alec Burleson for $1. So nothing really sexy or exciting. I think the takeaway there is we did see significantly different price points when it comes to what people are doing with Michael Taylor and Ronel Blanco as well. All right, let's look at some of the questions, see if there's any comments here. Patio Joe. Patio Joe's got a question. Let's go to Patio Joe. What do you think about Glasnow said about the MLB cracking down on sticky stuff for being a reason? Are we talking about for injury? I don't believe anything Tyler Glasnow says at all, or any of these guys say. You're not getting hurt less or hurt more because you don't have sticky stuff. How about this? Don't cheat. I never used anything but rosin my whole life. I mean, they rub the baseballs up. There are guys that, Garrett Cole famously said a bunch of nonsense when they banned the sticky stuff. To me, that doesn't. Glasnow, or was it Glasnow that blamed his injury on lack of, I think he basically said, if I remember correctly, and it's early in the morning, I could be wrong, but I think Glasnow basically said he hurt his arm because they took the sticky stuff away. I got no sympathy for you breaking the rules, bro. So whether that's the case or not, maybe it is true. I don't know. I think it's ridiculous. How many of you out there when you were in school used sticky stuff to throw? To me, the sticky stuff allows you to get that tactileness, to get more of the control on the baseball. I don't know why it would change. What they say is they have to grip the ball harder, which puts more strain on the forearm. That's the argument. Sticky stuff allows you to relax and throw it because the ball just sticks to your fingers versus having to you don't a baseball when you throw it anyway. I don't buy that, Patio Joe. I don't buy that. Doug M, Trevor Story. We talked about Trevor Story. Yeah, I haven't gotten an update this morning. It's too early on a Monday. We haven't gotten an update beyond the shoulders injured. He's going on the injured list, and we'll see how long it's going to be. But there is some concern that it could be an extended period of time on the injured list for him. Mark P, should we stash Tiedemann with Gausman's velocity down? I would say in theory, yes. Now, the problem is Tiedemann's not going to throw 150 innings this year. And his work in the minors to date, I think it's 2 outings, has not been very impressive. Tiedemann can be a 1 or a 2 at the big league level. He's got the stuff and the talent to be a star in the bigs. Last year was messed up because he dealt with injuries. He went to the AFL, looked really good, came into camp this year, had a little bit of a physical setback, started out a little slow in the minors. You could add Tiedemann, but again, I don't know if that'd be the pivot they would make. That being said, Francis hasn't looked great. They might have to do something anyway. I think that Tiedemann, when he's called up, those bid numbers are like 40%. Like when he gets called up, people are going to go all in with Tiedemann. So if you want to avoid that and get ahead of it, do it now. The problem is we might not see him for 2 months, even with the concerns with Gausman. I just don't know if that's the direction the Blue Jays would go in at this point. And then Mike had another comment. I'm a big believer. Mark, had another comment. I'm a big believer in carrying a second catcher with all these off days, looking at Henry Davis on waivers. I don't believe it makes any sense at all to carry a second catcher if you're in a 1-catcher league. That's me. And here's the reason why. You're much better off stashing Ricky Tiedemann on the hope that he gets called up, stashing Dylan Cruz on the hope he gets called up, stashing, a Chad Green and hope that he takes over the closer role because Romano has a setback. A second catcher is going to play for you 35 games tops. Because when your number 1 catcher is out, your number 2 catcher has to have an active game that day and also has to be in the lineup. That's not always the case. So there might be 35, 40 open games. You might only get 25 games out of that. What's 25 games out of a catcher hitting 250 with 4 home runs? You could grab a reliever that can get 28 saves this year. You could grab a minor leaguer that could win Rookie of the Year this year. To me, a better way to spend that bench spot is to spend it on someone that could have a huge outcome. Maybe you grab a pitcher. Maybe you grab an El Blanco, right? You grab Garrett Crochet or one of these guys that's on the waiver wire, and you make 20 starts out of those guys. That's way more valuable finding that guy than it is getting a second catcher that's going to hit 225 with 4 home runs. So that's my thought on that, Mark. Other people disagree, but that's how I would play it in the vast majority of leagues. Steve Davis, excuse me. Nice smile there, Steve. You're looking good. Great job as usual. Keep doing the waiver wire. Okay, that's 1 vote for the waiver wire. We'll see how it goes. I know it's after the fact, so it's not necessarily helpful, but maybe it's just a good way to see if you bid properly this weekend, if you're off on your bidding. We've obviously got Patio Joe doing the FAAB article over the weekend at fantasyguru.com to help you with the bidding. You can always ask questions in Discord as well. So, all right, appreciate that, Steve. Thank you for saying that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Monday through Friday here on Fantasy Sports Daily, we'll hit some of the big news topics, some of the big stories. We're going to continue. We'll probably go back to some NASCAR talk on Friday with Fantasy Bosco. I think we've got a football talk coming up on Thursday. We might have a guest. I think we have a guest on Wednesday. Let me take a look here. I think we might have Scott Bonder this week. We have Scott Bonder this week. We do have Scott Bonder this week on Wednesday. So we're going to get other people besides me from the staff at fantasyguru.com here on the show. As again, you can see there on the screen, FSD20 is the promo code. The seasonal coverage for fantasyguru.com is available. Sign up for that. The wagering part at fantasyguru.com is available. Sign up for that. The DFS product for baseball is available at fantasyguru.com. Sign up for that. Top right, join now tab. We've also got the off-season all-in package, which includes, there it is, NBA, NHL, PGA, MMA, soccer, racing, all of it one package, all of it one price, all the sports DFS, all the sports wagering. Can't beat that, folks. $39.99. You can't, legitimately can't beat that. So I would encourage everyone to sign up for that as well. And don't forget to tune in to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio from 3 to 6 Eastern for Jeff Mann Show, the Elite Sports Show. And then after that, this evening, I'll be back on the air with Justin Fensterman. We're on Elite Sports Game Time. That show is from 8 to 10 Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. If you also sign in that Game Time package, the all-in package, if you will, that I just talked about with all the sports, you get access to the Game Time Discord room where we actually have discussions with you while we're doing the show. So if you're interested in doing that, talking about some wagering, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, maybe you're sweating something, you get access to the Discord with that over at fantasyguru.com if you sign up for that all-in package. So thanks for listening to me today. Again, Fantasy Sports Daily, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern Time. We're at Elite Plus on the website. Click on that. You can go to your favorite podcast network, type in Fantasy Sports Daily. You can go to youtube.com/@Elite Plus Network if you want to see me and see the videos and all the exciting stuff here, what we do at Fantasy Sports Daily. So thanks for listening. I got a cash game breakdown to write. I'm going to jump in and do that, and also be in Discord to help you set your lineups here as we start the third week of the Major League Baseball season in 2024. I am Ray Flowers. Thank you for listening today and for watching Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.